Beautiful day, Southern California, out in the hills a little bit. Really enjoying this one. This is the Motion Evo 27.5 Pro. 27.5 refers to these 650B 27.5 diameter wheels, which do not have the stock tires. These are Schwalbe Hans Dampf, a little bit of an upgrade. Do you remember the ones that come on it, Mark?
Yeah, so a little more tame, the Racing Ralph, a little bit more XC or cross-country oriented.
Yeah, okay, so the ones that you get, maybe not quite this aggressive. You see the huge knobs and stuff, but still solid. Schwalbe tires, 2.2 diameter on
Yeah,
this?
2.25.
2.25, yeah, thank you for that. We've been studying this bike together. Mark used to work for Easy Motion.
Yep.
And agreed to come with me today and just to help flush out some of the finer points on these bikes, give me some perspective. He's also an avid mountain biker, and he runs a shop in Irvine. So, it's Recycles. That's your shop. What's your URL?
URL is ebikesupply.com.
Okay, cool. So if someone's in this area, you might end up interfacing with Mark. He sells these, and it's just been fun to get, like I said, a little bit more technical. So I'm going to jump in on some of just the main specs, and then we'll dig in a little bit deeper. I noticed this has a hollow spindle down here, which is a little stiffer, a little lighter, 2 rings up front, 10 in the back. So this is 20 speed Shimano Dior XT. This is not the Shadow Plus, which has like the one-way clutch that tightens it. It seems like it's been performing all right. You can see a little bit of nicks happening here and definite use on the chain guard, the slap guard right there. I like that they include those on all the Easy Motion bikes. If we come over to the other side, hydraulic disc brakes, 203 millimeter up front, really nice, bit of an upgrade. A lot of their other models only have 180s up front and 160s in the rear. This one has a 180 in the rear. So exactly what you'd want to have on like a real mountain bike. Quick release through axle. We actually pulled that out. It's not just an axle that's built into the hub motor, it's an actual through axle. So stiff, a little bit more convenient, nice quick disconnect on the power cable and a little holster down there. Also, the cabling for the motor, it comes right in front of the disc brake and inside the frame dropout and the quick release. So if this bike tips over, it's a little bit more protected. It's just a little tighter. The cables on this bike are really nice, internally routed, sealed, threaded up here, watertight, and it has an upgraded display system that we're gonna get to in a minute. The grips are another area. I don't know if they're stock or not, but we were talking about that. What does this say down here?
That's Bestigi Hermanos. That's BH, as in
BH.
BH, the company that makes Easy Motion.
It's like a 100-plus-year-old company, and I was getting some background on this. It sounds like these are some brothers over in Spain, and they used to make guns, and their mom was like, "Stop making guns." But they had all these tools, and so they were like,
so they had the tooling, and they're like, okay, we can make bicycles,
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Bring people together. That's awesome. That's really cool. Didn't know about that until started doing some more research on these bikes and stuff. So great drivetrain, awesome hub motor. This is an upgrade. So for this model year, we've got the same Dapu manufacturer, but you'll notice it's a little bit larger, a little bit heavier as well. That's because it's a 500 watt nominal internally geared rear hub motor. 42.9 Newton meters of torque. That's really good and very zippy. I was just climbing up this trail, not really struggling, and for a hub motor, that's great. And this is the model to get it on, in my opinion, because it's a hardtail. You don't have to worry about unsprung weight bouncing around if it was a full suspension design. It's also going to be a lot more affordable than if you go with a mid-drive, and you're not going to have to worry about mashing your chain and your gears and stressing and bending your derailleurs. So it's nice to separate your drivetrain from the motor like this. And I think the weight's pretty well balanced with the battery up here. This is 8.2 pounds, 48 volt, 600 watt hours total. So it's pretty good range that you're gonna get on these things. We haven't tested them to completion, but there is a little estimator that's kind of dynamic. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then for the price, I haven't mentioned the price yet, but it's $3,099. Most of the other Easy Motion Evo bikes are $29.99. Okay, so for $99, you get all this, like awesome. You do only get one frame size. Unfortunately, it's just this like 18-inch standard, but I like that the top tubes slope down. I also like that they put rear rack bosses on this, so you could turn it into a bit of a commuter platform by week and then a fun off-road platform by weekend. No bottle cage bosses. You know, again, it's kind of a tight triangle, but given that it's an integrated battery, it's like, wow, it feels like, you know, you get the saddle rail adapters or something. Wear Camelback. We talk about this. We've been reviewing several bikes together, and Mark's like, oh, come on.
Usually go out with a Camelback, you know, especially on your longer rides and stuff. You throw some trail mix or bars in there or something. Have a good time.
And some tools, some extra tubes.
Maybe a tube, yeah.
Exactly. So it's not the end of the world, but I want to call it out. Quick release on the front, 9mm standard skewer, which is a bit of a like, oh, really? Because this is a Fox 32 Performance. This is a nice fork, air fork, and it's got lockout. Actually, locks pretty solid, and rebound adjust. This was a highlight for me. This is a more expensive part for this relatively affordable bike.
And I believe years past they used like a lower end RockShox or an SR Suntour. So going with the Fox high performance 32 millimeter is a big upgrade. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's nice, and it blends in nicely. They didn't have to really paint match it. The matte black pretty much matches this matte black. And what we were fighting over this earlier. We're like, it's orange, it's red, it's orange red. Is it burnt orange? I don't know. It's high visibility. Regardless, it's a nice color scheme here. Looks pretty rad to me. I want to complain about some things before we jump in up here. Okay, you know what I'm going to complain about. I'm sort of like mixed on the placement of the key slot over here and the charging port. Yeah, I don't know, you know, where else do you put them? Way up here or, you know, whatnot. It's just that the crank arm can shear them off, and it kind of gets in the way down here a little bit. This bike doesn't come with a kickstand. Of course, it's kind of like an actual mountain bike. It does have mounting ports at the base and at the rear, though. So, you know, you could potentially add one yourself if you're more of the commuter type. And then back to this charging port. It's got a nice cap that actually seats well, but the charger itself, it's like 1.5 pounds, 2 amp, oh my gosh, come on, 2 amp, not super fast, and given that this is a 600 watt-hour battery, it'd be nice if this was 4 amp. It's not like super small or anything, it's kind of generic. This plugs in there, and then it's got these little wings, so you can like lock it on, and to me that's a mixed approach, because if someone's walking along and they trip over it, your bike's going to come tumbling down. It might even break off. And there's this special dongle adapter you have to use to plug directly into the battery. So you can charge the battery on or off the bike, but it requires that dongle and a little bit of extra effort and just keeping track. There we go. So we get that in. I might even take this off real quick. Love that this one has the advanced display and it's removable, but you can also remove the button pad over here and use the older easy motion control pad that's just kind of smaller. This one gives you some extra features that we'll talk about in a minute. So here's the key. Put it in, unlock it. And this one, I think this is owned by one of the employees. Is that what he was saying?
Yeah, so I believe, you know, he swapped out the tires and it's his personal bike.
It's his personal bike. So you can see some of the wear that starts to happen. And one of the things that I've called out in the past is like, as you pull this battery up, it can collide with the seat tube and you can see a nick right there and a nick right there. And so you start to scratch this beautiful paint and it's like, oh, that's a bit of a bummer. So just be careful. I'm pulling out, but I'm doing it delicately. There we go. And that's what it looks like inside. A little bit dusty, but it's working pretty well. See some of the readouts on the bottom of this. 48 volt, 12.6 amp hour. Got a little LED indicator so you can see if it's charged even when it's not on the bike. And then that's the other charging port. That's what you need the dongle for. So, yep. Let's get this back on. Like that. Okay, and then you have to turn the key and lock it on. The key won't come out until it's locked, which is a great safety feature. Maybe we can put this back, or should we put it behind this one?
Yep.
Yeah. Sweet. So everything about the Easy Motion bikes has been pretty modular, and the Neo and then the Evo line has stayed pretty consistent over the years. This is the first time I've seen the new display panel. It boots up a little bit faster when you press the power button. Actually, I think you have to hold the power button. There we go. You don't have to hold it for like 3.5, 4 seconds. You just a couple seconds, which is nice. Don't be pushing on the pedals or moving when you turn the bike on because it uses a TMM4 torque sensor down there. And it's just a little bit more precise. It's a nicer component versus a lot of the cadence sensors that are on off. This is like on and more on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a little bit more precise. Do you want to walk us through this
Yeah,
Mark?
sure. So with the Pro designation, you get the upgraded battery, so you get 100 extra watt hours, as well as the screen. You get their new inline display, their Pro display. It's got some extra additional features. It's got the total miles, the total time. Then it has trip miles, trip time. But it goes above and beyond that in that you can actually check out some diagnostic features, such as you can check the battery temperature on the bike.
That's right.
Which is useful for diagnosing problems, more shop oriented, and some other things that you can draw down into to diagnose in a shop setting.
We were talking like the voltage signal or something coming from the torque sensor, and there's one more like cycle count or something in there.
Yeah, there's state of health for the battery.
State of health,
and that's another thing. Just the health of the battery. Your local shop can draw down in there and deduce exactly what's going on.
This is a part that you could upgrade on the other ones.
Yes.
And we were talking to, was that John?
John.
Yeah, and he was saying it's like 99 bucks. So
Yeah.
if you're someone who has this display, you can get up to this. And if you get this and you're like, it's too much, you can go down to the normal display.
And a big thing about it, it does have a full-size USB port here.
Look at that, right below the display. That is so cool.
With many other bikes, you can run Strava or your cell phone.
Little speakers, little boombox action.
Boombox.
So before he was talking about the different readouts here, if you press that power button again, it cycles through total or trip stats. And then we've got 0 to 100 on pedal assist. You use the plus or minus. So right now we're at 100, down to 70, down to 50, and down to 30, and then 0. This bike doesn't have a twist throttle, which some of the Easy Motion city-oriented bikes do, but that keeps it at class 1, top speed, 20 miles per hour. Means it's legal on more mountain biking trails, like in California. Battery infographic with 4 bars and a battery percentage. I love that. And then just the speed right in the middle, real easy to read. We also found out that if you hold the minus button, it turns on backlighting. And that you could, some of the shops, like your shop, you could wire in some lights or something aftermarket if you, again, coming back to the city performance. And I think there's also like a little light sensor on the bottom, which might activate backlighting too. So it's a little bit more smart. And if you hold the plus, that turns on walk mode. So, a couple miles per hour or whatever.
Hike a bike or anything like that. Yeah, it's nice with such a heavy bike to have that, it's an extra feature, a nice little feature.
Yeah, and the bike, I think it's a decent weight given the power of the motor and the battery. I think it's like 52.8 pounds. So we're getting to that 53 pound mark. Not terrible. I think the price really catches my attention, but you have to make sure this is the right size for you and that, you like some of these other features. You're okay with the hub motor. It does make a little bit more of a kind of a zippy noise, but it frees up that drivetrain, and so you're not going to get as much wear. Tapered head tube for extra strength, decent cage style platform pedals, Shimano Dior crankset. Can you talk a little bit about the hollow spindle and...
Yeah, so this is just kind of a higher end crankset by Shimano. It uses their Hollowtech standard, which is a hollow 24 millimeter spindle. It's a 2-piece arm setup. So you got the spindle that slides in and then the non-drive crank that pops on. So it's part of their higher end line of products.
That's nice. And even, the grips we were talking about earlier, the trigger shifters, I think are Shimano.
Yep.
The Tektro Auriga brake levers, they have adjustable reach and they have the motor inhibitor. So, if you're pushing down on the pedals and that's activating assist, but you're braking, so maybe you're bracing yourself, the motor's not going to be fighting you. And that's a nice feature, something you want when you're actually riding off-road. So, gosh, I feel like we've gone through pretty much everything. Have I missed anything here?
I don't think so. Let's hit the trail.
Yeah, maybe you can take off real quick and climb, and I'll chase you. Okay, so Mark's got his helmet on. He's getting ready for the ride. Just go for it, man. I'll kind of follow along.
Turn.
Looking good. How tall are you?
5'10".
5'10".
Lot of torque. This thing's easily going up the hill.
Nice. This is a very steep and, kind of eroded trail. So to be able to do that using a hub motor, it's definitely more powerful than past iterations from Easy Motion. Got the brakes going. Nice, really smooth. Digging it. Okay, so I'm gonna do some climbing on this. You might be able to hear the motor and just see how responsive the pedal assist is. Again, it kind of fades out. It doesn't stop immediately unless you pull those brake levers. Also, being a hardtail, one of the areas I consider to upgrade is the seat post. I believe it's 31.6 millimeter diameter, and if you put a suspension post like a Thud Buster or Body Float, it can really transform this ride. And again, you're getting a bike that's not quite as expensive as a full suspension, and maybe the frame's a little stiffer too. Probably noticed the delay there. After I stopped pedaling, the motor would keep going. This time, I'm going to use the brakes to make it cut off immediately. Cool, they work well. And it's nice to have the extra sprocket up front, because I did sort of max it out in the high gears and needed to shift up to the larger ring for those higher speeds, 20 plus. You can see at those lower RPMs when I'm going slow but climbing, you don't get that same efficiency out of the hub motor. It is strong, 500 watts. It's not quite as effective as a mid-drive at those lower speeds because you can leverage the gears with the mid-drive. That's where Bosch in particular, they have the smaller sprocket up front. It spins like twice for every revolution of your pedals. It's all about optimizing the RPM. So this hub motor, it's giving you that curve, and it's really most effective at a little bit higher speed. Nice. That was a good ride. It seemed like the brakes worked pretty well for you.
Brakes worked really well. One thing about this bike is it's so balanced. Riding uphill, it just feels so natural riding. A lot of torque. So
yeah, that in the old designs or the cheaper ones, you've kind of got a big battery box that's, I've worried sometimes, like, is it going to rattle, or, it's connected by 2 or 3 bosses. This battery's really fit in well. The brakes work great. For me, this is one of my favorite models. It just feels like a go anywhere, good value type of thing. Absolutely. I really appreciate you being out here, like, riding with me and
of course,
giving the demos and stuff.
Look at this weather. It's gorgeous out. So
it really is cool. Oh, right over there, it's like Oakley headquarters. And
Whiting Ranch is right there. Good mountain bike spot.
Just beautiful. Well, thank you so much. For the full write-up on this, including standover height and some of the other specs, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. And, of course, have fun, ride safe.